The morning mist hung thick over the abandoned mining colony of Kepler 442b as Marcus Chen adjusted his thermal scope. 3 years of hunting in the Outer Rim territories had taught him to read the subtle signs that separated a good day from a deadly one. Today felt different. The electromagnetic readings were all wrong, showing patterns that didn't match any known wildlife on this forgotten world. "Jake, you seeing this?" Marcus whispered into his comm unit, scanning the rocky outcroppings ahead. His hunting partner, Jake Morrison, crouched behind a cluster of crystalline formations about 50 meters to his left. "Yeah, whatever's out there is big. Real big." Jake's voice carried the tension of a man who'd learned to trust his instincts. Energy signatures off the charts. Could be one of those Kytherian predators we heard about. Marcus frowned. The Kytherians had abandoned this system decades ago, leaving behind only ruins and cautionary tales. Most humans avoided their former territories, but that's exactly why Marcus and Jake came here. Abandoned worlds meant untouched ecosystems and rare game that collectors in the core systems paid premium prices for. The two hunters had been tracking something for 3 days. Whatever it was, it moved with intelligence, covering its tracks and avoiding their standard traps. The electromagnetic signature suggested something mechanical, but the biological readings indicated a living creature. It made no sense. Marcus moved forward carefully, his boots finding purchase on the loose shale. The planet's twin suns cast long shadows between the ancient mining equipment scattered across the landscape. Massive excavation machines sat silent and rusted, their Kytherian designs still elegant despite decades of neglect. A sound echoed from somewhere ahead. Not quite a howl, not quite a mechanical whine. It sent chills down Marcus's spine. He'd hunted apex predators across a dozen worlds, but this sound was unlike anything in his experience. "Movement, 2 o'clock, Jake's voice crackled through the comm. "Whatever it is, it's not trying to hide anymore." Marcus swung his scope toward Jake's position and caught sight of something that made him blink hard and look again. A creature emerged from behind a fallen mining tower, and it defied every category he knew. At first glance, it looked like a dog, a really ugly dog. Its fur was matted and gray, hanging in patches that revealed scarred hide underneath. One ear hung lower than the other, and its snout was askew, as if broken long ago and healed badly. But it was the size of a small shuttle, easily 12 feet at the shoulder, with eyes that glowed with an inner light that definitely wasn't natural. "What the hell is that thing?" Jake whispered. The creature turned its massive head toward their position. Those glowing eyes fixed on Marcus with an intelligence that made his trigger finger hesitate. There was something in that gaze. Recognition. Not the wild calculation of a predator, but something almost familiar. Marcus had seen plenty of alien wildlife, but nothing like this. The creature's proportions were all wrong for its size. It moved with the gait of a normal dog, tail wagging slightly, but each step shook the ground. The electromagnetic readings spiked whenever it moved, suggesting internal technology that shouldn't exist in any biological creature. "Easy, boy," Marcus found himself saying, though he wasn't sure why. The creature's tail wagged harder, and it took a step closer. Jake's voice was tight with controlled panic. "Marcus, that thing could crush us without thinking about it. We should fall back, call for backup," but Marcus couldn't move. The creature had stopped about 20 meters away and sat down, just like a normal dog waiting for its owner to throw a ball. The casual normalcy of the gesture, combined with the creature's impossible size and obvious artificial enhancements, created a cognitive dissonance that left Marcus struggling to process what he was seeing. "It's not aggressive," Marcus said slowly. "Look at its body language. Ears forward, tail wagging, relaxed posture. It's friendly. Friendly things don't usually register on military-grade threat detection systems," Jake pointed out. But he didn't argue when Marcus began moving closer. The creature watched Marcus approach with what could only be described as hope. Its massive tail thumped against the ground, sending small rocks skittering. Up close, Marcus could see that what he'd taken for battle scars were actually intricate markings carved into the creature's hide. Kytherian script, if he wasn't mistaken. "You're not from here, are you?" Marcus said softly, extending his hand. The creature stretched its enormous head forward and sniffed delicately, despite being large enough to swallow Marcus whole. The moment the creature's nose touched Marcus's palm, everything changed. Images flooded Marcus's mind. Not his memories, but someone else's. A young Catherian female, her skin the deep purple of royal bloodlines, laughing as she played with a much smaller version of this same creature. Training sessions in vast crystal chambers, quiet moments of companionship during long space voyages, and then chaos. Ships burning. The desperate evacuation of a dying world. The princess, for that's clearly what she was, pressing something into the creature's collar and whispering urgent words before the evacuation pod launched. Marcus jerked his hand back, gasping. The creature whined softly, a sound that didn't match its size, and Marcus realized he was looking at someone's lost pet. Someone's lost friend. "Jake, get over here," Marcus called, his voice shaky. "You're not going to believe this." Jake approached cautiously, weapon still ready but lowered. "What happened? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Close. I think this is Prince." "No, Princess Zarathul's pet. The one that disappeared when the Catherian homeworld fell." Jake stared at him. "That was 30 years ago. This thing would have to be ancient by any normal standard. But look at those markings. That's not natural fur patterning, and those aren't battle scars. Someone modified this creature for longevity. Probably gave it enhanced intelligence, and who knows what else." The creature seemed to understand they were talking about it. It stood and padded over to a nearby piece of Catherian technology. Something that looked like a communications array. With surprising delicacy for something so large, it began manipulating the controls with its nose and paws. "It's trying to activate something," Jake observed. The array hummed to life, projecting a holographic image into the air above them. The same Catherian princess from Marcus's vision appeared, looking much older and wearing the formal robes of exile. She spoke in her native language, but Marcus's translation implant picked up the meaning. "If anyone finds Brutus, please know that he was my dearest companion. He carries with him the location of my family's refuge. Information that certain factions would kill for. I have enhanced him to survive until I can return for him. But if something happens to me, I pray that whoever finds him will treat him with kindness. He may look fierce, but he has the heart of a puppy. Please, if you have any compassion, help him find his way home." The hologram flickered and died. The creature, Brutus, looked at them with those impossibly intelligent eyes and whined again. Marcus looked at Jake, who was staring at the creature with new understanding. "So we've got a lost pet the size of a tank, carrying information that could start a war, stuck on a planet nobody visits, and it's been waiting here for 3 decades. 30 years, Marcus repeated slowly. "Jake, do you realize what this means? The Catherian exile fleets have been scattered across the galaxy. No one knows where the royal family ended up. But this guy knows exactly where they are," Jake finished. "Marcus, we could return him to his family. Think about the reward, the recognition. We'd be heroes across 2 species." But Marcus was thinking about something else entirely. "Or we could sell the information to the hegemony. They've been hunting the Catherian royals for decades. The bounty alone would set us up for life." Brutus seemed to sense the tension in their voices. He moved closer to Marcus, pressing his massive head against the human's chest with surprising gentleness. The gesture was unmistakably affectionate, trusting. Marcus felt something twist in his chest. Here was a creature that had been abandoned on a dead world for 30 years, waiting faithfully for a rescue that might never come, and the first beings to find him were contemplating selling him out for money. "We can't do it," Marcus said quietly. "Look at him, Jake. He's been alone for 30 years. The least we can do is get him home. Well, we have Callan. We have Callan you all. 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 We can't." Jake was quiet for a long moment, studying the creature that had begun to lean against Marcus with the full weight of trust. You realize this makes us enemies of the hegemony. They'll put a price on our heads the moment they find out what we're doing. Yeah, well, we're hunters, not slavers. Marcus scratched behind one of Brutus's enormous ears, earning a pleased rumble that vibrated through the ground. Besides, can you imagine trying to explain to our kids that we found someone's lost dog and sold him to the people trying to kill his family? Jake laughed despite himself. Our kids are going to hear some interesting bedtime stories. He holstered his weapon completely and approached Brutus with open hands. Hey there, big guy. Looks like you're coming home with us. Brutus's tail wagged so hard it knocked over a piece of mining equipment. The practical concerns hit them almost immediately. How do you transport a creature the size of a small building? Their ship, the Lucky Strike, was a modified cargo hauler. But it wasn't designed for passengers this size. We'll have to modify the cargo bay, Jake mused, walking around Brutus to gauge the dimensions. Strip out the internal partitions. Install life support rated for his mass. Food's going to be another issue, Marcus added. What does something this size eat? Brutus seemed to understand the problem. He padded over to another piece of Catherian equipment and activated it with the same careful manipulation they'd seen before. This time, a detailed schematic appeared, showing biological requirements and care instructions. Synthetic proteins, mineral supplements, and… Is that right? Music? Jake squinted at the floating text. It says he needs to hear classical music for optimal health. Marcus grinned. A giant dog that likes Beethoven. Princess Zarathul had a sense of humor. As they worked through the practical challenges, Marcus found himself thinking about the bigger picture. The Catherian Empire had fallen because of internal politics and external pressure from the human hegemony. The surviving royals had scattered to the Outer Rim, some seeking peaceful exile, others building power for an eventual return. Princess Zarathul had been known as a moderate, someone who believed in cooperation between species rather than domination. If she was still alive, and if they could reunite her with Brutus, it might open diplomatic possibilities that had been closed for decades. Of course, it might also get them all killed. You sure about this? Jake asked, as if reading Marcus's thoughts. We're about to make some very powerful enemies. Marcus looked at Brutus, who was now lying on his side, tail still wagging as he watched them plan. Despite his size and obvious enhancements, there was something undeniably innocent about him, something that reminded Marcus why he'd gotten into hunting in the first place. Not for the money, but for the adventure and the chance to see wonders that most humans never imagined. I'm sure, Marcus said. Besides, how hard can it be to smuggle one oversized dog past the most powerful military force in the galaxy? Jake's expression suggested he could think of several ways that plan might go wrong, but he was grinning. Well, when you put it like that, it sounds easy. As the twin suns began to set over the abandoned mining colony, Marcus and Jake started the long process of preparing for a journey that would take them across the galaxy and into the heart of one of the longest-running conflicts in galactic history. But for now, they had a simple mission. Get one lost dog home to his family. How hard could it be? The modifications to the Lucky Strike took 3 days, working around the clock with Brutus supervising every step. The massive creature had proven surprisingly helpful, using his enhanced strength to move heavy equipment while demonstrating an understanding of engineering principles that shouldn't exist in any biological creature. Hand me that plasma welder, Jake called from inside the cargo bay, where he was installing reinforced floor supports. Brutus delicately picked up the tool in his mouth and passed it through the access hatch. Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead as he watched their unlikely assistant. I swear he understands engineering better than half the techs I've worked with. Princess probably had him educated along with herself, Jake's voice echoed from the cargo bay. Look at these collar readings. This thing has a processing core that would make a military AI jealous. The collar itself was a work of art. What had looked like simple Catherian script from a distance revealed itself as an incredibly sophisticated piece of technology up close. Brutus had allowed them to examine it, but had made it clear through body language that removing it was not an option. Marcus ran his scanner over the collar's surface for the 100th time, marveling at the readings. Bio-neural interface, quantum memory storage, emergency medical systems, and something that looks like a star chart storage system. This isn't just a pet collar, it's a mobile command center. Brutus woofed softly, a sound that despite his size managed to convey agreement, and perhaps a touch of pride. The real challenge came when they tried to figure out navigation. The star chart data in Brutus's collar was encrypted with Royal Kytherian codes that would take a military code-breaking team months to crack. But Brutus seemed to understand what they needed. When Marcus activated the ship's navigation computer, Brutus approached the console and placed one massive paw on the interface. The system immediately began displaying star charts with a precision that made Marcus's military-grade equipment look primitive. "He's interfacing directly with our nav system," Jake said in wonder, watching the data stream across his screens. "Look at this route. It's not taking us through any major shipping lanes or patrol routes. This is a completely off-the-grid path through systems I've never even heard of. The route would take them through the Drift Nebula, past the ruins of 3 dead civilizations, and into territory that most star charts marked as unexplored or hazardous. It was exactly the kind of path someone would use if they didn't want to be found." "How long?" Marcus asked. "At our maximum burn rate, about 6 weeks. Maybe 7 if we run into trouble." Jake paused. "And Marcus, we're definitely going to run into trouble. Look at these system markers." Marcus studied the route Brutus had provided. 3 different points along the path were flagged with warnings in multiple languages. Hegemony Interdiction Zone, Pirate Territory, Transit Not Recommended, and most ominously, Kytherian Imperial Remnant, Lethal Force Authorized. "Imperial Remnant?" Marcus looked at Brutus. "I thought the Empire fell completely." Brutus made a sound that might have been a sigh, then activated his collar's holographic projector again. This time, the image showed a star map of Kytherian territory as it existed before the fall. Dozens of systems, millions of worlds. A civilization that had spanned a quarter of the galaxy. The image shifted, showing the territory as it existed now. Scattered pockets of survivors, isolated colonies, and several areas marked as holdout fleets that still maintained the old imperial structure. Not all of them surrendered, Marcus realized. Some of them are still fighting, Jake whistled low, and we're flying straight through their territory. This gets better and better. The launch itself went smoothly enough. Brutus settled into the modified cargo bay with obvious relief, finally able to stretch out properly for the first time in decades. Marcus had installed speakers throughout the bay and, following the care instructions they'd found, began playing classical music from Earth's archives. The effect was immediate and surprising. Brutus's entire demeanor changed, becoming more relaxed and alert at the same time. His eyes brightened. His massive tail began a steady rhythm against the deck plating, and he actually began to hum, along with the music in a deep, resonant tone that vibrated through the ship's hull. "Well, that's not terrifying at all," Jake muttered, feeling the vibrations through his boots. "Our cargo is humming Beethoven." The first week passed without incident. They skirted the edge of human hegemony space, staying well clear of patrol routes and monitoring stations. Brutus proved to be an ideal passenger, requiring minimal care and somehow managing to make even the cramped confines of a cargo hauler feel less isolated. Marcus found himself spending more and more time in the cargo bay, talking to Brutus about anything and everything. The creature was an excellent listener, responding with appropriate sounds and body language that made conversation feel natural, despite the obvious impossibility of the situation. "You know, boy," Marcus said during one of these sessions, "I keep thinking about your princess. What she must have gone through. Losing everything, and having to send you away, must have been like cutting out her own heart." Brutus whined softly and placed his enormous head in Marcus's lap. The weight was considerable, but the gesture was unmistakably comforting. It was Jake who spotted the trouble first. "Marcus, get up here. We've got company." Marcus made his way to the bridge, leaving Brutus humming along to a Mozart concerto. The main display showed 3 ships on an intercept course, moving fast and flying in military formation. "Hegemony patrol?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer from Jake's expression. "Worse. Those are bounty hunters, and they're broadcasting a very interesting message." Jake activated the communication system. A gruff voice filled the bridge. "Attention cargo vessel Lucky Strike. We have credible intelligence that you are harboring stolen Catherian artifacts. Prepare to be boarded for inspection." Marcus felt his stomach drop. How did they find us so fast? Could be a leak from the mining station. Could be they've been monitoring Catherian sites. Doesn't matter now. Jake's hands were already moving over the controls, plotting evasive maneuvers. Question is, do we run or fight? The Lucky Strike was a cargo hauler, not a warship. Against 3 purpose-built hunting vessels, they wouldn't stand a chance in a straight fight. But running meant leading the hunters directly toward Princess Zarathul's location. Marcus activated the ship's intercom. "Brutus, we've got some bad guys coming. I need you to stay calm and quiet." "Okay?" The music stopped, and Brutus's voice came through the speakers with surprising clarity. Not barking or whining, but actual words, in accented but understandable galactic standard. "I understand, Marcus friend. But these hunters seek me, not you. Perhaps it would be better if I surrender myself." Marcus and Jake stared at each other in shock. "You can talk," Jake said weakly. "I have always been able to communicate. I simply saw no need until now." Brutus's voice was deep and dignified, with the careful pronunciation of someone speaking a learned language. "I will not allow harm to come to you, because of my presence." "Absolutely not," Marcus said firmly. "We're not giving up. We're getting you home. Just like we promised." "Then we must be clever. May I suggest a strategy?" Before either human could respond, the hunting ships opened fire. Warning shots. But the message was clear. The Lucky Strike shuddered under the impact. "Talk fast," Jake said, his hands flying over the controls as he began evasive maneuvers. "The hunters seek a creature too large to be hidden. But they do not seek a sophisticated AI core, yes?" Marcus caught on immediately. "The collar. You can download yourself into the ship's computer." "Precisely. My physical form can be temporarily discontinued. The resurrection protocols in my collar will reconstruct my body when conditions are safe." Jake looked horrified. "You're talking about dying and hoping the technology works to bring you back. I am talking about protecting my friends and completing my mission." Princess Zarathul installed multiple redundancies. "I have died before, Marcus friend. It is unpleasant, but not permanent." The ship shook again as another warning shot struck their hull. "Do it," Marcus said. "But I want your word that you're coming back." "You have it. And Marcus friend, when I return, perhaps you could arrange for more classical music. 30 years without Beethoven has been most trying." The process was unlike anything Marcus had ever witnessed. Brutus lay still in the cargo bay as his collar began to glow with increasing intensity. Gradually, his massive form began to dissolve into streams of energy that flowed into the ship's computer core. Within minutes, nothing remained but an empty cargo bay and the sound of Brutus's voice coming through the ship's speakers. "Download complete. I am now distributed throughout the Lucky Strike's computer network. This is actually quite comfortable." The boarding party arrived 20 minutes later. 3 humans in military-grade armor, led by a woman with the scarred face and cold eyes of someone who'd made killing a profession. "I'm Captain Sarah Voss," she announced as her team swept through the ship with professional efficiency. "We have reason to believe you're harboring stolen Catherian technology." Marcus put on his best confused expression. "We're just cargo haulers. Been hunting on Kepler 442b for a week. Nothing to show for it but empty traps and wasted fuel." Voss's team was thorough, checking every compartment and scanning for energy signatures. They found nothing, because there was nothing to find. Brutus had somehow masked his presence completely within the ship's normal operational parameters. "Curious," Voss said, studying her scanner readings. "We detected a massive biosignature at this location just hours ago. Probably that pack of Kepler rams we scared off," Jake said casually. "Big as shuttles. Those things made a hell of a noise." The inspection continued for another hour. Marcus could hear Brutus occasionally making small talk through the ship's communication system, commenting on the hunters' techniques and offering suggestions for where they might look next. "Your ship's AI is quite chatty," Voss observed. New personality core, Marcus explained. Still working out the bugs. Tends to ramble about random stuff. Finally, Voss seemed satisfied. All right. You're clear. But I'd stay away from Catherian sites if I were you. Lot of dangerous people interested in anything from that part of history. After the hunting ships departed, Marcus collapsed in his command chair. That was too close. Indeed. Brutus's voice agreed. But now we know they are actively hunting for me. The security situation has changed considerably. What do you mean? Jake asked. Captain Voss and her team were not freelance bounty hunters. Their equipment, their techniques, their ship configurations, all hegemony military. Operating under unofficial cover, someone very powerful wants me found. Marcus felt a chill. The hegemony knows you're out there. More than that. They know I carry information about Princess Zarathul's location, which means someone has been talking who should not have been. The implications hit both humans simultaneously. If there was a leak in the Catherian exile community, then Princess Zarathul was in immediate danger, and by heading straight toward her location, they might be leading her enemies directly to her. We have to warn her, Marcus said. Agreed. But first, I must return to physical form. The resurrection process requires significant power, and it would be best accomplished while we are stationary. Jake was already scanning for suitable locations. There's an abandoned refueling station about 12 hours away, off the main shipping routes, probably empty. Excellent. And gentlemen, thank you. Your willingness to risk your lives for someone you had never met until a week ago. This is why Princess Zarathul believed cooperation between our species was possible. As the Lucky Strike changed course toward the abandoned station, Marcus found himself thinking about what they'd gotten themselves into. What had started as a simple rescue mission was turning into something much larger and more dangerous. But looking around the bridge, listening to Brutus hum quietly through the ship's speakers as he processed the classical music Marcus had put on, Marcus realized he didn't regret their decision. Some things were worth the risk, even if those things happened to be giant dogs with artificial intelligence and the ability to start galactic wars. Next time, Jake said quietly, let's just hunt normal wildlife. Marcus grinned. Where's the fun in that? The abandoned refueling station hung in space like a metal skeleton, its solar collectors dark and its docking bays empty. According to the records, it had been operational during the height of the Kytherian Empire, serving ships traveling the outer rim trade routes. Now it was just another piece of debris in a galaxy full of forgotten places. Looks stable enough, Jake said, studying the structural readings as they approached. Main power core's dead, but the atmospheric processors are still functioning. We can dock safely. Marcus nodded, his attention focused on the resurrection process Brutus was preparing to undergo. The ship's computer had been displaying increasingly complex energy patterns as Brutus organized himself for the transfer back to physical form. Ready when you are, big guy, Marcus said to the speakers. Beginning resurrection protocol now. Brutus's voice replied. Please stand clear of the cargo bay. The energy discharge may be considerable. The Lucky Strike shuddered as massive amounts of power flowed from the ship's generators into the cargo bay. Emergency lighting flickered throughout the vessel, and Marcus could hear the hull creaking under stress it was never designed to handle. Power draw is off the charts, Jake reported from the engineering station. How much energy does it take to build a creature that size? This, quote, apparently more than our generators can safely provide, Marcus said, watching the warning lights multiply across his control panel. But we're committed now. The process took nearly an hour. Energy flowed, light blazed from the cargo bay windows, and gradually something took shape in the modified space they'd prepared. When the power finally stabilized, Marcus opened the cargo bay cameras to check the results. Brutus lay in the center of the bay, looking exactly as he had before. But something was different. His movements seemed smoother, more coordinated. The artificial enhancements that had been hidden beneath his scraggly fur were now more visible, glowing softly with internal energy. Resurrection complete, Brutus announced, his voice now coming from the cargo bay instead of the ship's speakers. All systems functioning within normal parameters. Marcus and Jake made their way to the cargo bay to check on their passenger. Brutus greeted them with his usual enthusiasm, though Marcus noticed the creature's eyes now held an alertness that hadn't been there before. "How do you feel?" Marcus asked. "Refreshed." The process allows for optimization of biological and technological systems. I am now functioning at full capacity for the first time in several decades. Brutus paused, tilting his massive head. I have also received several priority messages through my collar's quantum communication array. Jake frowned. Messages? From who? Princess Zarathul, among others. It appears our situation has become significantly more complex. Brutus activated his collar's holographic projector, displaying a star map with several areas highlighted in red. Hegemony forces have moved into this sector in significant numbers. They are conducting what they call anti-terrorism sweeps, but they are specifically targeting known exile settlements. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. They're hunting down the surviving Catherians. More precisely, they are hunting down Princess Zarathul and her supporters. Intelligence suggests that hardline factions within the hegemony have decided that the Catherian exile leadership represents a long-term threat that must be eliminated. The implications were staggering. The Catherian Empire had fallen 30 years ago, but millions of survivors had scattered throughout the Outer Rim territories. Most had integrated peacefully into human space, becoming productive citizens of the communities that accepted them. But if the hegemony was now targeting them for elimination, it's genocide, Jake said quietly. They're planning to finish what they started 3 decades ago. Princess Zarathul believes so, yes. Which is why she has activated certain contingencies that have been dormant since the fall of the Empire. Brutus manipulated his collar controls, and the holographic display changed to show fleet movements and communication intercepts. What Marcus saw made him whistle in surprise. Scattered throughout the Outer Rim, Catherian exile fleets were moving. Ships that had been disguised as merchant vessels were revealing their true nature as military units. Hidden bases were coming online, and at the center of it all, a symbol Marcus recognized from history books. The royal crest of the Catherian Empire. She's reuniting the survivors, Marcus realized. Princess Zarathul is rebuilding the empire. Not rebuilding, Brutus corrected. Defending. The difference is crucial to understanding her intentions. The holographic display showed Princess Zarathul herself, older now than in the recordings they'd seen before, but unmistakably royal in her bearing. She wore the deep blue robes of a fleet commander, and behind her Marcus could see the bridge of what was obviously a military vessel. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to command, but also a weariness that spoke of decades of loss and exile. "My dear Brutus," she said, "if you are receiving this message, it means you have found allies among the humans. I hope they are treating you with the kindness you deserve." Brutus's tail wagged slightly at the sound of her voice, and Marcus felt a pang of sympathy for the separation they'd both endured. "The situation has deteriorated rapidly," the princess continued. "Hegemony forces are moving against our settlements across 7 systems. Our intelligence networks report that this is the beginning of a coordinated campaign to eliminate all organized Catherian presence in this sector of the galaxy." The display showed combat footage from several locations. Catherian settlements under attack. Refugee ships fleeing burning colonies. Families separated in the chaos of evacuation. It was a nightmare that Marcus had hoped the galaxy had moved beyond. "I am therefore activating Protocol 7. All exile fleets are to converge on the sanctuary for final preparations." Brutus, your navigation data is crucial to this effort. Without it, we cannot ensure the safety of our people during the transition. Marcus looked at Brutus. Sanctuary? A hidden fortress system that was prepared during the final days of the Empire. It was to be a refuge of last resort, somewhere the survivors could gather, if all other options were exhausted. Brutus's voice carried a note of pride. Princess Zarathul spent 20 years preparing it. Even I do not know its full capabilities. The message continued. Time is running short. Hegemony Intelligence has identified several of our key leaders and is closing in on their locations. I estimate we have perhaps 2 weeks before they discover the existence of the sanctuary system itself. 2 weeks to cross half the galaxy and reach a hidden fortress, while avoiding the most powerful military force in known space. Marcus had survived impossible odds before. But this was beginning to seem like suicide. "There is something else," the princess said, and her expression hardened. "We have identified the source of the intelligence leak that led to the current crisis. Someone within the exile leadership has been providing information to the hegemony in exchange for personal amnesty." Jake whistled softly. "A traitor in the royal court. Things just keep getting better. I do not know who, and I do not know how high the betrayal reaches. Therefore, Brutus, you must trust no one except the allies you have chosen. Bring them if they are willing, but trust no other Catherian until we can meet in person." The hologram flickered and changed to show navigation data and security protocols. "I am sending you emergency override codes that will grant your human allies provisional status within our command structure. If they have chosen to help you, they have earned the right to be heard." Marcus felt a chill as the implications hit him. The princess was essentially offering them military rank in a reconstituted Catherian empire. That made them enemies of the human hegemony by definition. The final phase of the journey to Sanctuary will require passage through the Maelstrom Nebula, the princess continued. No human ship has ever successfully navigated those passages. And our own charts are centuries old. You will need to interface directly with your ship's navigation system and guide them through personally. Brutus looked at Marcus and Jake with something that might have been an apology in his enormous eyes. "I should have mentioned the Maelstrom Nebula earlier. It is challenging to navigate." Jake pulled up what little information their computer had about the nebula. Challenging doesn't begin to cover it. Gravity wells that shift without warning, radiation storms that can fry electronics from 50,000 kilometers away, and spatial distortions that turn a straight-line course into a pretzel. "It is the only approach to Sanctuary that has not been compromised," Brutus said. "And Princess Zarathul is correct. No human vessel has ever successfully navigated it. But no human vessel has ever carried a Catherian navigation intelligence either." Marcus studied the data, feeling the weight of decision settling on his shoulders. They could still turn back, drop Brutus off at the nearest neutral station and disappear into the Outer Rim territories. No one would blame them for avoiding what was essentially a galactic war. But looking at Brutus, remembering the loneliness in his eyes when they'd first found him, Marcus knew they'd already made their choice. "All right," Marcus said. "We're in, but I want to know exactly what we're flying into." Brutus activated another holographic display, this one showing the sanctuary system in detail. What Marcus saw took his breath away. 3 planets orbited a binary star system, each one converted into a massive fortress. Orbital stations connected by bridges of force and metal created defensive rings around each world, and everywhere, the elegant curves and crystal spires that marked Cytherian architecture at its finest. "It is beautiful," Brutus said quietly. "Princess Zarathul designed it as more than just a military base. It was to be a new homeworld, a place where our people could rebuild their civilization without the mistakes of the past." Jake was studying the defensive specifications with professional interest. "Those aren't just fortresses, they're mobile. The whole system can relocate if it needs to. Emergency protocols allow for the entire population to evacuate within 72 hours, Brutus confirmed. "Princess Zarathul learned from the fall of our original homeworld. Never again would our people be trapped by their own success." Marcus made his decision. "Set course for the Maelstrom Nebula. And Brutus? Send a message to your princess. Tell her the humans are coming. And we're bringing backup." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Backup?" Marcus was already accessing the ship's communication array, composing a message on frequencies he hadn't used in years. "I know some people who specialize in impossible situations. If we're going to war, we're not going alone." As the Lucky Strike prepared to depart the abandoned station, Marcus found himself thinking about the road that had brought them here. A simple hunting trip had turned into a rescue mission, which had become a reunion, which was now evolving into something that might reshape the political landscape of the entire galaxy. But looking at Brutus, who had begun humming along to Mozart again as he calculated navigation routes through impossible space, Marcus realized he wouldn't change any of it. Some jobs were bigger than the people who took them on, and sometimes that was exactly why they needed to be done. You know, Jake said as they prepared for the most dangerous journey of their lives. When we get back, I'm writing a book about this. How I started a galactic war by finding someone's lost dog. Marcus grinned. Think anyone will believe it? Not a chance. But it'll make a hell of a story. As the Lucky Strike accelerated toward the Maelstrom Nebula and the unknown future that waited beyond it, three unlikely allies prepared to face the most powerful military force in the galaxy. A princess fighting to save her people, a loyal companion who had waited 30 years to come home, and two human hunters who had learned that sometimes the most important things you find are the ones you weren't looking for. The stars stretched ahead of them, full of danger and possibility in equal measure. But for the first time in 30 years, Princess Zarathul's ancient, ugly dog was finally going home.